I'm glad to see so many young people in the audience and in the room today. Kindness is not just about being pleasant. What is kindness? Not just the word, but what does kindness result in? Happiness, understanding, compassion. And what does that lead to? Harmony and peace. These are outcomes. These are good outcomes. So kindness is connected to being good, and it's connected to doing good. And today, unfortunately, we have a system that often rewards unkindness. Because as it turns out in media and in politics, it's much more profitable right now to focus on unkindness between people. Make a lot more money a lot faster in media and politics if you're unkind. And the problem with that is that then you have more unkindness happen, because who can compete by being kind if somebody else is doing better, getting a bigger audience by being unkind? But the reality is that 70% of us at least want to be kind to each other and are kind to each other when we engage, even to people who are very different from us. That's a vast majority of us. 70% of us will do that. We all have the power to be kind and to do kind things and to produce kind outcomes. But a lot of times the media, politics might maybe make us feel, especially if we're young, that we don't have that power. But the reality is we do. And every face I see in here who is under the age of 20, by the way, you have particular power. It may not feel like it, but you are $3 million walking, at least. In the eyes of banks, food companies and shoe companies and clothing companies and cosmetic companies and the folks who build your houses and the folks who, take your taxes, you are at least $3 million to them. Every one of you. Even if you don't have all $3 million right now, you'll spend that in the course of your life. And that's why they pursue you so much. You are the one making those choices. You have $3 million and you're going to be making choices as to who is rewarded with that. And if you're going to use kindness and reward kindness, you're going to reward the companies and the people who are kind to the rest of us. And when it comes to corporations, that means corporations that advance their corporate social responsibilities as a normal part of their business. And so we're going to have a conversation now about what corporate social responsibility is, why companies engage in corporate social responsibility, how they engage in corporate social responsibility, and how we can encourage them to do an even better job of that. And I'd like to do this in the form of stories as much as I can. I know sometimes it may be hard to come up with a story, but rather than making it theoretical for folks, let's see if there are stories that we can tell. So question number one is simply, what is corporate social responsibility? Would one of you like to start with a story that helps to illustrate what corporate social responsibility is?
So hi, my name is Sylvia Abboud. I'm the Executive Director for Heart of the Valley Services for Seniors Incorporated. We provide free services to seniors, transportation, yard work, handyman, and in-home services. Whatever they ask for, as long as we have a volunteer that can help them, we try to help them. So something that came to mind when I heard the question is, out of the blue, a couple of years ago, we got a phone call from one of the major social media companies in the area asking if we would be part of their volunteerism program. And we thought, oh my gosh, sure. So what they did was they provided us with a couple of volunteers from their company, which were their employees. And they actually did some amazing work for us. They were more than happy to do it. They helped us move our website as well as our phone system to better service providers, which was a huge task. We could not have done it on our own, and we've been wanting to do it for a few years. Even though we have techie volunteers, they weren't at the capacity of these people that kind of were in that area and could do that for us. And then they liked us so much, they stayed for a year providing us free social media ads on their platform as well as other platforms. So we were just blown away with that. And that's really, I think, sums it up. They saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, if you look at their salaries, we had 2 people, and that's significant. So if they didn't give us that money, at least we got the people and got the benefit of that. And if they gave us that money, we would spend more time trying to find the right people, put the program together, figure out how to do it, than if they just came out and knew immediately how to. So
Wow.
that was big for us.
So you got in a way that was better for you than a grant. The grant probably would have been less money, first of all, and then you wouldn't have known how to use it. So the company gave of itself, almost of its soul. It was like, this is what the company does best, and they contributed or assigned employees to provide you with the service that you wouldn't have been able to provide for yourself. So, Sundar.
Yeah, so I think that's a kind of a segue to one of the questions that comes up, and I'll get to my story as well, is how do companies help? How can companies help NGOs? How do NGOs approach companies? So if you look at the Valley, for example, we have several models. There are companies who have created a foundation, and that foundation executes on the mission, whatever the foundation has defined. Then there are companies who do matching donations. So if an employee gives $1 to a cause, and that cause is approved by the company's system, the company will give $1 or $2, some kind of matching. And there's a platform called Benevity, which manages this kind of matching programs. And you can, as an NGO, make sure that you are part of Benevity, and you can go to one of the big companies and say, through an employee, we are part of Benevity, so if you give $1, it'll come to us. So that's matching program. Then there are companies in the Valley who also do the volunteerism, where they give time to the employees, and the employee can get credit for that time. And so that's very powerful, because then it allows the employee to do something that they like, some cause, whether it's education, homelessness, food, hunger, whatever it is. So that's a nice way of it. So there's no real money that's being given, but time, and that can be very helpful, as you said. And then the last model, maybe there are other models, the one that I can think of is where the company doesn't have a formal program, but it's very loosely structured, and the employee says, look, I want to go and support this. I'm going to give $100. Can you give me $100? And the company HR team will evaluate, because they have a fairly loose structure, so it's not constrained. And if it's a second harvest, food baskets or food banks and things like that, then the company will give so that's a loose structure. So that gives you some sense of different ways that companies support through CSR. Now, I think the speaker before, she said that 6% of total giving is coming from corporates, which means there's a huge potential to do more from the corporate side. So we obviously have to educate the corporates on something on the gap. And even that 6% was $29 billion. So it's a lot of money. But the question, of course, becomes how effective is that money? Where does it go? So I'll just talk about, I work for a contract manufacturing company, Sanmina, which is the largest contract manufacturer founded in Silicon Valley. And we still do a lot of manufacturing in the Valley. But we're also in 20 other countries, it's a global company. So just like many of the multinationals, there is a global reach. And the nice thing about the global piece is that there are teams within each of these countries where they can support their NGO and the company supports it. So our company falls in the bracket, the last group that I said, which is unconstrained, but allowing people to do what charities they want to support and then providing funding. So I'll give you the story of, we have a large plant in India, in Chennai, outside Chennai, and it's doing electronics manufacturing. Now, India is one of the countries which has actually taken the lead and mandated CSR. I don't know how many people know this, but if you are a certain size, above a certain amount of revenue, you have to spend 2% of your net profit on corporate social responsibility. That is a mandate. And it has made a huge difference. So, for example, in our plant in Chennai, we are now working with 19 villages and several schools in those villages in upgrading the villages, in providing healthcare to the students and also the seniors in the villages, working with a local NGO. We launched a mobile clinic that goes to the villages because they don't have access to healthcare. And then we are doing several other things. So that's an example where the CSR is mandated, but it's really benefiting the poor. And the mandate has certain guidelines. You know, it is supposed to help the rural areas, it's the community around the plant or the facility that you have. So I think if something like that were to happen in the US, I can't imagine. If you imagine even 1% of net profit of US corporations being spent on underserved communities, on causes that need help, I think it could transform this. And that's something, Bill, I think we should.
I think now, sometimes some people would say that companies are doing things, or they find that they're in a marketplace, a competitive marketplace, where what they do is not what they would most aspire to do if they wanted to do the most good for people. But this is what they need to do in order to be profitable and to survive. If they don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, take their place in the marketplace. What do you think a corporation's social responsibility is in that situation where they're in a marketplace that's only rewarding them, but that's mostly rewarding them for doing something that's harmful?
So, as fund for the example, in our case, fund for the companies that are working on alternative energy. So we try to use those sources so that even though we are on one side, we consume a lot of energy, as I said, try to reduce the impact on energy.
So you're supporting the use of alternative energy so that you can, and renewable energy, so that you have alternative sources, you can reduce the carbon footprint of what you're doing.
And then fund those programs for some of the startups, and fund even incubations. The number of kids that have a lot of ideas, fund them, help them.
Now, Sundar, it sounds like in India, you're saying with the law there, that a lot of companies are going into their communities and they're providing fundamentals that those communities need. What do you think some of those fundamentals are here in the States? Are there areas of corporate social responsibility that you think companies should be focusing on that maybe government isn't doing the best job at?
Even in India, when it was first introduced in, I think, 2013, it was a loose mandate. But in the last 5 to 6 years, they've enforced it now, made it law. And it's taken time for the companies to adopt it, but now they see the benefits of it. I think in the US, we definitely are much more of a free enterprise, which means we hate mandates. Companies don't like mandates.
Yeah.
So I think one has to find a medium between creating a carrot to incentivize the companies in a way to do this good or CSR. And of course, there are things like tax breaks and so on. Maybe it's something deeper that we got to think about. And if you do a mandate, then do it in such a way that the goodness, the value of goodness is more apparent from the mandate. So it becomes more appealing to
Mhm.
a company to say, hey, I think it makes sense.
So the company, what is more rewarded for doing?
More rewarded, or maybe saying, look, we have certain parts of the US, and I'll talk about the Mississippi Delta.
Yeah.
Because I'm personally involved in some projects
Mm.
with that, where the community has been basically neglected. I'm involved with a company called People Shores, where we take youth between the ages of 18 to 24, train them in IT, and employ them right there. So it's a way of creating IT jobs in the US and getting contracts from companies. So we started these centers, and Clarksdale, Mississippi is one of the places where we have this company's center. And when we went there in the beginning, it was absolutely shocking. You know, in Silicon Valley, we live in a bubble.
Mhm. Yeah, we do.
There are parts of the US which are just, people here cannot even imagine the living conditions there in terms of health, education, and so on. So we went there, and Clarksdale has about 20,000 people. The unemployment is around probably 40% or higher. About 80 to 85% is African American, and a lot of poverty.
Mhm.
Started this with help from the mayor and the local government, and today we have, close to, I think, between 80 or so, predominantly women, single mothers, who are now trained. They've got jobs, they've got IT careers,
Mm.
and they get health benefits. And they said this is the best thing that happened
Mm.
because we
Tremendous.
took the initiative to go and do this there.
Wow.
Now we're doing it also in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. We're doing something in Brooklyn. We're doing something in Georgia.
Mm.
So I'm going a little off the track here, but I just want to show that there's benefits, that we can create jobs, we can create careers for young people, and our clients are larger companies.
Mhm.
They're giving us the contracts.
Yeah.
They feel good about it because they're helping to rebuild the community.
Mhm.
The local governments are very happy because we are creating jobs. So if you have a model like that,
Mhm.
which is somewhat of a win-win-win for all stakeholders,
Yeah.
then we can move forward. And that needs to be done at scale.
Now, Sylvia, your institution is all about that, it seems like.
Yeah, we really are. And, as I drive around, I am seeing where corporations really are putting out their corporate responsibility. For instance, the traffic in the morning and coming back in the evening is super bad. And we're starting to see the buses from the corporations getting their employees from their area to the corporation and back. And I think it's really wonderful that they're taking that into account, but it was from the employees saying, we need this. And I think the employees have a very strong voice and can also look at society and say, we need this too, and come up with all these different ideas that corporations can really benefit from, as well as provide the service and put in the funding. And I think another really good one is downtown, Durridon Station area, where a major corporation has gone in and is beautifying the area. And this is a really big thing for the community, especially for seniors, because now there's a walkable space where they don't need transportation and they can go to the grocery store, they can go to the bank, they can visit their friends, family, church, et cetera, et cetera. And so more things like that, I think, really show corporate responsibility, because not only are they going to benefit from it, the corporation, but so will other corporations as they move closer to the Bay Area where the people are, and have office space nearby, and that reduces congestion. It helps our environment get cleaner, and there's just so many benefits to that kind of corporate social responsibility. So it's not just one thing. It's just it can be a total global thing, as we've been discussing, but it can be very local as well. And I really do hope that more corporations look at it from that perspective.
Now, what's the responsibility of citizens? We talked a little bit earlier about, the people who have the money are actually all of us. We're the ones that have the $3 million a person in the course of our lives that we're giving to companies and government and other entities. And we have our labor. We're providing the labor. We are the job holders in all of these institutions. And we're the citizens in these communities. What's the role of the citizens to motivate companies to be responsible?
Well, from my perspective, running, Heart of the Valley, if it wasn't for our senior clients, if it wasn't for the senior community, needing help, needing services, reaching out, we wouldn't exist. So if they have a strong voice, and I think all of us, not just seniors, have a strong voice. We really should be supporting nonprofits with our volunteerism, with our voice, with our ideas. And, we really need to also go to community, all the city council meetings, for instance, go to where the mayor speaks and talk to the mayor and get to know them in your city. Once you're more active and they see that the public is coming forward, they all work on what the public says. If the public has a big cry for, housing, that's what they focus on. If it's on transportation, that's what they focus on. And, I go to every single city council meeting and mayor presentation in all the cities that we serve. And I don't see the public there. And so that's one of the things that we put on our website. That's one of the things we put on social media, that, we really, as a public, need to go out and let them know what's important to us.
Yeah, I think, Bill, you brought up a very big point, very important point, which is each one of us needs to get involved. We can't be a spectator. It may sound good, but unless we take action, nothing's going to happen.
And what's a good way to start? Is there a way to start?
A good way to start, I think, is find a cause that you like. It could be feeding someone, or homelessness, or education, or volunteering with one of the charities. And then see which charity is working in that cause. And then get involved with them slowly. Doesn't have to be, huge involvement, step by step, a little time per week. And it'll start growing on you. And then if you're working for a company, start spreading the awareness within the company. Get some friends involved. And then get the company to see how you can help that charity, that NGO. So I think everyone in the room, when the fact that you're here means you are interested, you're part of kindness. So you're already on board. But if you're not actively involved doing something, then this is the time to start. And you have to take action. That's very important.
We're about to close. I'm going to provide one answer to this question from my experience of 40 some years working between activists and companies, and working originally as an activist myself. Simply writing a letter to a company, particularly if you're a young person or a young mom, oh my gosh, you've got so much power you can't imagine. And even a single letter to a company, even if they don't respond, sometimes we get calls from companies say, we got this letter. It says this and that. They almost overreact. So a letter to a company with a good idea will be listened to. And if you've got, let's say, a group, 1,000 young people, represents $3 billion in spending power to these companies. 1,000 young people communicating with a company is a very powerful tool. And we don't have to demand action by the companies. Demanding is a show of lack of power. Simply saying that you're going to reward companies for doing what's right, that's your use of power. That makes a difference. Are there any final words before we go on?
So make these programs and the relationship a longevity. So that's the key. One time effort's great, but making this long or the longevity of those programs is going to have a long-term impact.
Everything that we basically said here is you have a voice, and use it. whether it's, writing a letter or going to city council meetings. You can even meet with the member of the police force. They have coffee with a cop every Wednesday in San Jose. So, so I'm sure in your city they have the same thing, and you can talk about a lot of issues with them. And they really listen and they really want to help. They just want to understand with the public what's the most important thing on the public's mind. And that's how you keep that relationship growing. So it's basically showing up.
Okay, and I'll just make a plug for 3 charities I'm involved in. The Heart to Heart Foundation, they have a booth. It's about congenital heart disease in children, providing free surgeries. Second one is Education for All, which is focused on rural education. And the third one is the Annapurna Trust, which provides breakfast nutrition for children in the morning.
And finally, I would say, as you reach out to companies, be kind. That doesn't mean that you're always friendly and always positive. You may be angry about something. But rather than pushing the company away, recognize that you've got a lot of people inside those companies trying to do what's right. And if you just condemn the company when it does not quite enough, you actually disempower those people inside the companies that are trying to do good. So be kind, recognize you have allies inside that company and find those allies. They're always there. Never forget that you have the power. So I want to thank my panel for a great conversation and thank Tal for the invitation to be here today.